My name is Olaf Hubel. I'm a senior program manager on the Excel team. I'm here today with Alex.
Hi, I'm Alex Lahuerta.
So today we're going to talk about Excel better together with Power BI. We have a lot of demos to talk about today. First, I wanted to do 3 or 4 slides, just positioning a little bit what we're going to talk about today and what we're going to do for demos. But the bulk of the session is going to be us demoing end-to-end from Excel into Power BI all the way back into Excel and make the whole thing loop again. So we have some really cool stuff going on, we hope. So I hope you like it. But first, let me just position Power BI and Excel better together. There's a lot of different ways that they integrate together and what you can do. For example, you can be in Excel and you can publish from Excel directly to Power BI. So you can publish your data model into Power BI and it can use it, or you can publish the full Excel file directly to Power BI and have actually the file render in full fidelity inside of Power BI. Now, both of those things we'll demo today, so you'll see that. Power BI has an option that if you have your reports in Power BI and you want to use that data and do some analysis on it or dive a little bit deeper, they have this Analyze in Excel option. And so if you click on that, that data then directly comes to Excel. It's a really cool option. We'll talk about that as well. We'll demo that feature as well. But that's one of the really cool features where a lot of times the people that make the data models and have access to all the databases and data sources and those type of things, they want to publish the data to others that don't necessarily have access to the actual data source. So if you publish it through Power BI that way and you do Analyze in Excel, those people just see the data that they're allowed to see from that dashboard. So it's a really nice way of getting them access to data. Another option that there is pinning. So you can actually, if you have a chart in Excel, you can just say, hey, I want to pin this to a Power BI dashboard right away. And it just puts the chart or the table or really whatever you select. It will pin it up to Power BI. And then the last one is import, meaning you can be in Power BI and you can actually say, hey, I want to import a data model. I want to import an Excel file. Those kind of similar to the publish option, actually. Technically the same, just different path that you took. You start either in Power BI or in Excel. And then on the bottom, we have get and transform in the data model. The important part there is that it's the same stack. So Power BI and Excel use the exact same stack. So if you know DAX, if you know M, if you know how to work, or you know how to pull in the data, you know how to clean the data, you know how to model it, you know how to do it in Excel, you know how to do it in Power BI. It's the same thing. Today you see us do this a lot in Excel. Works the same in Power BI. Actually, we're going to show you how to actually move it over to Power BI as well. Really quick, what is get and transform and what is the data model? So the first one, what is get and transform, really is the tool, we call it get and transform inside of Excel. That's in the data tab. That is the tool that allows you to connect to all the different data sources. More importantly, it's the tool that allows you to actually clean up those data sources and do trimming, splitting, but my favorite, unpivoting, things like that. And it will create a whole host of steps, and you can actually step back in those steps. It's really nice. A way of seeing, like, what are you doing to your data? How are you cleaning this data? And lastly, it actually auto does it every time you hit refresh. So if you're looking at a folder with files or you're looking at another data source, every time it will apply all those steps. So you never have to do that again. And then you take that data, you put it into your data model. If you do that inside of Excel, that is the way to get more than 1 million items into Excel. So if you're going to have millions and millions, some of the demos I do have 10 million rows. That is how you do it. So you get and transform, gets the data in. You then put it into your data model. Now what you can do in the data model, besides going such a large amounts of rows, is also make connections between all those data sources that you imported. So that's why you see the little table and relationships here. And so you set up the relationships between all the different data sources that you imported, and then you can use all that in your pivots and those type of things. And so again, we're going to go through all this and actually demo it. I just wanted to level set so you understand what it is you'll see in the demos. Sometimes it's a little bit harder to follow the whole thing. Now, a lot of different tools you hear us talk about today. So we'll talk a lot about Power BI. So Power BI optimized for the insights and consumption of your data. Excel optimized for the deep analytical or ad hoc type of work. So you'll see us do both today. So we'll really highlight that. And you hear me talk a lot about Office 365 as well, because I believe better together of Power BI and Excel actually is through groups from 365 that really brings all those things together. And I have a slide on this before I position that as well. But 365 really being optimized for modern collab and being able to work together. So the reason I bring in 365 into this discussion and not just Power BI and Excel is really because I believe people work in teams and data flows throughout the team. And so I wanted to take this notion of a team or a group of people and how do they work together and how do you share data, starting all the way from the person that actually creates the data to the analyst to the last person that then consumes the data. And so that is as a team as a whole. And so we've seen teams really explode on more and more people work in teams. They work in international teams, teams outside of their enterprise, things like that. Now, there used to be a big problem with that. If you worked in teams like that, you would email each other a copy of your Excel file, and you would break the version of truth, and now you had 15 versions of Excel, stuff like that, right? So I think we all know those pains. Siloed apps that don't work together, so you're in one app, and that app doesn't know that you're part of the team in the other app, those things. Now, Groups in 365 solves all that. It brings all those things together. So if you look at chat-based, that's where Microsoft Teams sits. Mail and calendar is Outlook, for example. Today, I'll focus a lot, obviously, on Excel for co-authoring. So now you can actually email each other an Excel file, but because the Excel file is in 365, it is actually a cloud attachment. It looks like an attachment, but it isn't really. If you click on it, you can actually co-author right away from your email. It's still the same version of the document. You make a change to it, anybody that you email makes a change to that document, everybody will see it. It stays with a single version of truth. I'll talk a little bit about Sites and SharePoint, just because that's a glue, it brings things together. That's where I save my files for Excel, and then we'll talk about Power BI, obviously. So really what we're trying to show is that complete integrated solution, and then I won't touch on security and those things today, but just take my word for it, it's super easy. I'll show you how to create a group. It's one click. The security is taken care of on that part. So 365 will create the group. If you add a member to the group anywhere, from your email part or from the SharePoint site or from your workspace in Power BI, those members automatically get access to all the information within that group. And that really is the power that brings all those different silos together. Now, to make that a little bit more real, so I did more of a little bit of a marketing pitch. Alex will talk quickly about what we're going to demo and how we're going to make that real today.
So while Office 365 offers a broad set of capabilities that enable you to achieve more, we're going to actually focus on what that means for your business intelligence workloads. We'll be talking about a specific scenario. We are a manufacturer of delicious cakes, and we are now going through periodic forecasting of sales and materials that we're going to need. We'll start with regional offices that are compiling their projections, and that'll highlight some of the new collaboration functionality we've added to Excel. From there, we're going to take it to the data analyst in headquarters, who is going to clean and model the data using Get and Transform and Power Pivot. After I've built a few different pivot tables and some charts, I'm now ready to share my analyses with a broader company. And from there, we'll be able to export the data model into Power BI, where we'll build rich interactive dashboards and share more broadly. And at the end, we'll use the Analyze in Excel feature in Power BI to highlight how Excel and Power BI together make a powerful and flexible end-to-end business intelligence pipeline.
So let's start with the first demo. From here on out, it's pretty much demo. Those were the slides. I hope it wasn't too many. Let's see, yeah. Here I'm in my 365 environment, so I'm hoping everybody knows 365. If you have that, that comes with Power BI as well, so that's why it really is that full stack. So I'm working in a demo tenant here. I actually literally set it up 3 days ago, one click, and then this is what you get. Here you see all the different apps I have. So I have my mail, I have all those things, but this is where Power Apps sit, Flow sits here, Power BI sits here, my OneDrive, and all that information, Excel. I can start that directly from here as well. Now, first thing I wanted to do, if I click on my SharePoint environment, and you don't have to start from SharePoint. You can do this from groups. You can start in Power BI as well. You can start in any of the silos that I just mentioned. It will all work the same. I just like to start from this direction. I'm an ex-SharePoint guy, so I feel natural there. So here we have some news from all my different sites. Our favorite people, Jen, in the back of the room. Shout out. So you actually see my groups down here. To create a group like this, all I have to do is click on site, and I have to type in a name here. And you see that here it already explains to me, it's actually going to set up everything, not just the site. It's going to set up a Power BI workspace for me. It's going to create all the other things that I need as well. So really all I had to do is just type in this name. Now, to save us from a lot of clicking today, I've done one. I created a Better Together group. So if I click on there, here you see the news for the Better Together group. You see the members. So today it's only me and Alex. You see some news. And if I scroll down, I already embedded a Power BI dashboard as well that belongs to this group. So people instantly see the latest things. And as you've seen in the keynote, this is interactive, so you can actually work with it. This is really your Power BI dashboard. And then in the bottom, I see files that I'm working with and that I'm editing either in here. So this really is the core where I start from my Excel files. So the first thing I want to do, I'm a local office. In this case, I'm working in Seattle, and we're making cakes, things like that, but I want to work on my financials. And so I have this Excel file that I'm working on, and I pinged one of my colleagues. I said, hey, we really need to work together on this file a little bit. I think the numbers are off, right? And because I saved it in my group, what I have now is a couple of really cool options. So first you see that autosave is on. That means I don't even have to hit the save button anymore. Anything I do is just instantly saved. The benefit of that is that I can also click on my history, and I can instantly here see the history of my file, and I can roll back. So if somebody made a change I don't like, I can actually go back. There's a full history of this document. Now the other thing I can do is click on share. So I can type in the name of somebody in my company. So if I type in Alex, it finds Alex right away. It shows me green that he's actually online. So I can say, hey, I want to share this with him, give him edit rights. Now, again, I've done that. And under here, you see that the group already has edit rights as well. Now, because I've done that, you see that Alex is already in here. So if I mouse over him, you see that he's actually working on D2. And now he's moving down. So here you see I am this green, that's me, highlighting my cells. The blue one under there, that's Alex in the same file working with me at the same time. I can actually go over there and hover, and he will be editing this number because 6,000 is clearly wrong, was supposed to be 60,000. So while he's editing, I won't do anything, and it will just refresh and show me that data, and everything else refreshes, right? So just to show you, starting from creation, you can already work together if you're in teams and really, like, you no longer send stuff around and break that version of a truth and then later try to merge all your documents and know who did what change and all those type of things. So that's a really quick pitch of how that works. Now what I'm going to do is I've saved this into the group side already, and so we'll switch modes a little bit, and we'll go to Alex, who then is in corporate and is going to take all those files from like 6, 7 different locations. Right? Just assume there's like 6 people like me that all created files like this and saved it into this one folder.
Great. So now we have the data analyst who is going to be building reports based on all the data from the regional offices. The first thing I'll need to do is to head over to the SharePoint site. And there I'll have a list of all the different files that are sitting in our document library. Here we have the different, and here we have, as you can see, we have the different regional offices. In order to bring all this data into Excel, I'll snip the first part of the URL and copy it to my clipboard. Once that's there, we can actually go to a blank workbook in Excel and navigate over to the data ribbon, where we have this new get and transform area. If you've ever worked with Power Query, this is what you've known as Power Query. We've recently integrated it and made it a native part of the app. You're able to bring in all of your data, whether it's sitting on your grid, directly in the workbook, or under the Get Data area, you'll see that we can also bring in from external databases such as SQL or from an Oracle server, or if you have any of your data on an Azure blob, and any number of different file formats. So in this case, we're going to bring things in from a SharePoint folder. Now we'll go ahead and paste that piece of the URL in there. And what Excel is doing is actually scanning the document library for all the files that it can import. The first thing it's going to do is just give us a list of all the different files that it's picked up. Here we have all the different regional offices, but we also have a few files that we're not interested in. And so what we want to do is filter those out. We'll then push the edit button, and that'll take us to the query editor. If you've seen this before, that's because this is a shared component between Power BI and Excel. This is just another one of those, a great way that what you've learned on how to do in one app can actually transfer to working in the other app. As you see, it's given us a list of all the different files sitting in that SharePoint folder, and we're going to go ahead and actually start filtering out the ones that we're not interested in. So we'll just open this folder path menu, And we'll see that we don't want the files sitting in the root folder. We want the ones related to the different regional offices. Now we'll press OK, and we'll be given a filtered list of the files, and these are the ones that we're interested in. At this point, we can now go ahead and combine them. So now what Excel is doing is it is scanning all the different files, and it assumes that all the files have the same layout. And what it'll do is actually ask us, okay, well, which parts of those workbooks do we want to bring into Excel? So it'll just pick the first file, and here we can pick a sheet, and it'll generate a preview of the data that it can bring in from that sheet. And this looks good, so we're going to press OK. Now it's taking the files that we want to work with, taking the content from the specific sheets that we want to work with, and it's generating a combined preview. This will be, depending on the file size, it'll be the first few hundred rows, or it'll be the entire contents. In this case, since the files are relatively small, we get all the contents combined from several different workbooks, all sitting in a preview in front of us. And now we can actually dig in and start doing some of the transforms. One of the first things that we'll want to do is actually make sure that all the data that we need is really focused across all the rows. And you can see here we have the dates, different date data spread across different columns. This makes it hard for us to later on build measures and different kinds of relationships. So we'll want to transfer those columns into the rows. Previously, before we had get and transform, this was something that would involve a lot of copy and paste or macros or hacking together different formulas to make it work. Really painful, really time-consuming process. And now we can actually make that all easy with just a couple of clicks. First thing we'll do is select all the columns, go to the Transform tab, and when we push Unpivot Columns, Get and Transform does its magic and turns them into rows. So at this point, we have data that is in a clean state, and we have a connection that goes back to our SharePoint folder. And we also have an audit trail on the right side. So this allows us to essentially just do this once and never have to do it again. So every period, whether it's a quarter, a year, every month, when we have to rebuild this report, all we have to do is open up Excel and push refresh. This will detect any of the changes that have happened to existing files in the folder. It'll work well if you've added new files that have existed in the folder. And it'll apply all the transforms for you. We're going to fast forward a little bit where I've already built some analyses. I've created a model and added some pivots to the workbook. So let's switch over to that workbook. I'm going to close this window. And now we can dig in and start doing some of our modeling. As you can see here on the right, we have a queries and connections pane. This is something new that we've added. This top query here is actually that connection to the SharePoint folder. Hovering on it gives us a preview of the data that's there. But you can also see that there are 4 other tables in here. These are tables that are queries that are connected directly to content in our workbook. These 4 tables here along the top. Now, in order to really be able to do analyses, you end up joining a lot of data from different tables in the workbook from different data sources. And it was something that used to involve essentially you doing a lot of VLOOKUPs, creating a lot of brittle formulas, and a very slow process and difficult. So we can solve that. We don't ever have to write another VLOOKUP. And to do that, we're going to use the data model. If we click on the Power Pivot ribbon, we have a button here that says Manage. This brings up the Power Pivot window. And I'm going to switch over to the diagram view just to get a high-level view of all our data. All those different data sources that we had sitting in that pane on the right are all sitting in front of us here. Now, never having to do a VLOOKUP involves a pair of steps. First thing we have to do is create relationships between the different tables, connect them all to each other. You can see these different lines here are actually relationships between different fields that are sitting in the tables. And in order to create the relationship, you just drag a field from one table to a similar field in another table. And now that'll allow you to start building formulas and performing some really rich interaction around slicing and dicing of your data. The second part, to never having to do VLOOKUP again, involves creating measures. And for that, we go into the data view. We take a look at our sales table. And measures are essentially very simple. They can be very simple or very complex calculations, but they're all written in the DAX language. if you've worked with Excel formulas, moving over to using DAX is a really easy transition. And again, these are building blocks that you can now reuse across Excel as well as Power BI. Once we're finished modeling the data, we're going to want to start creating visual interactive dashboards to share with the rest of the company. And to do that, we're going to export the model to Power BI. So I'll just close this window. And under File and Publish, we have a Publish to Power BI. Now, because this workbook is a part of the group's files, it will be published directly to the Power BI site for the team.
So Excel already knows which is the right workspace for Power BI that the same members have rights to. So it will automatically put it there. So you don't have to figure out which workspace to put this in, do any of those type of things.
Mm-hmm. Once the model has been exported, we're going to get a business bar along the top that tells us that we can now go to Power BI and start working with it. Pushing that button will then open up the Power BI dashboard. Again, we've already done some of the work here in the interest of time. So what we have here is actually a dashboard that is connected to that is essentially built off of that data model that we created in Excel. Pushing the Edit Report button will now will show us that all these visuals are built on the same tables and the same measures in the same workbook that we were just working with in Excel. Not only can we work with visuals built on the data model, but we can also pin objects that are sitting in Excel workbooks, and I'll show you a little bit about what that means. Under here, we have a workbook that Olaf was working with just a few moments ago, and if we click on it, we have a full fidelity rendered version of that workbook sitting directly inside of Power BI. And we can take these visuals and choose to pin them. And we'll pin them to the existing dashboard we have. And now we have the visuals built on not only on the data model, but also on the workbook that we have sitting in the Power BI service. At this point, we're ready to share our dashboard broadly with the team.
You want to switch back?
Yep.
So we'll switch back. So he took the role from corporate where he really took the data that I had in Excel and that I was co-authoring on with people. And then he actually had proprietary data almost in his own Excel file that he doesn't really want people to see, like recipes and stuff like that. He merged them all together, linked them, made some relationships, and then pushed that into Power BI. So I can now actually consume that data, part of it being my own, plus augmented with all the other data from all the other locations, plus his own data that I don't necessarily have rights to. So I'm back here in Power BI. Obviously, I can see the dashboard that he just created. I can actually look even at the data set. I can see the workbook that I published myself. That was the one he just pinned to the dashboard. But what I like to call out here is a couple of things. First, because I'm here in Power BI, I can click on this little button here. This is where you see that groups really is coming back together again. So within Power BI, I have that navigation as well for files, my members, my calendar, or the conversation. So that's yet another way to get back to that original file that I was working on in Excel. All I have to do is click on Files here in Power BI, and I would be back right there just to help you visualize the loop and how those things really are connected. Now, one of the really cool things I can do, obviously I can click on his report and I can see the report that Alex made and I can interact with that. But like I said in the beginning of the session, I would actually like to dive a little bit deeper into this data. I actually think it's kind of interesting, the data that Alex has here. So I can click on Analyze in Excel. So if I click on that, it downloads an ODC file for me, which will open up Excel, and you'll instantly connect to that data source. Now, I mentioned it earlier. I just have to have rights to or access to the Power BI environment. That's why I can see this data. Power BI will then deal with the connections that Alex set up. He could have been using on-prem servers. If you have Power BI Gateway connected, it would actually connect all the way to on-prem data sources that I don't have rights to or access to. But because he made the data model, he decided what I could see from that data set and how it needs to be filtered for me, all those type of things. So for me in Excel, this simply just works. So I see that exact same data model again that we've been showing you from the beginning. It now is showing up again in my Excel, but just from the other side, right? I'm right at the end of the loop now. I'm consuming all this data. So obviously I can just click anything on here and make my pivot tables like I would anyway. Now we have a cool part of the demo that we want to show and really like show you how this whole thing comes together and that it's actually not smoke and mirrors and those things, because I know we pre-prepped the demo and a lot of the files were already open. So what we're going to do is I'll go back into my group. So here I'm actually in Outlook, which is the same Better Together group. So I can create a new message and write something to the whole group or just to Alex and say, need some change. Change needed. Please update. Oh, well, we already chatted, so he knows what I'm talking about, so I'm not going to type out the whole email, obviously. And then I'm going to attach my file. So if I click on attach, this is that cloud attachment that I talked about a little bit earlier. So I say I want to attach a file, and actually here you see my Better Together group again. So I can click on there, and I can instantly find the file, the Analyze in Excel file that I created when I clicked on Analyze in Excel from Power BI, and obviously I went ahead and saved that already. And so all I have to do is just select it, say next, and I can say, hey, I want to make this a cloud attachment. And so now it automatically gives everybody rights to it. In this case, I'm just emailing it to the group. They already had rights. But if I would add other people to it, they would also get rights to this one document. And I can then send this out to Alex and ask him to make a change there. And so in this case, what I'm asking him to do is saying, hey, we're using vanilla abstract in our cake, and it's a little bit too expensive. We've done a trial. Can you mess around a little bit with the recipe, see if we can get better pricing and some products in there? So before I'll switch out, really what we're going to do is I'm going to leave this Excel file up here. He's going to go back to his original file, make some changes to the data model and the data and all those type of things, and then we'll show you how it comes back here in this Excel file, which actually round-tripped through Power BI. So the whole thing should work nice.
So let's see if we can spend a little less money on some of the ingredients for our cakes. We want to figure out how we can maybe have a little more predictive pricing for the amount of ingredients that we're going to be needing. In order to do that, we're going to take advantage of the ability to edit content on the grid directly in Excel, as well as some of the analytics tools that we have built into the product, specifically Solver. So if we want to alter the recipe, we're just going to see what happens if we can maybe just use a little bit of imitation vanilla. Now this is that table that I was showing you earlier is connected and built into the data model. So adding a row here on the grid is actually going to also update the table in the data model. And we can also use formulas in here. So if we want to use Solver, we'll set up this table here on the right that has some of the constraints that we're looking for and the kinds of things that we want to optimize. So let's say we wanted to spend no more than 80 cents of vanilla per recipe. We'll go over to the Data tab, and there we'll click on the Solver button, and I've already gone ahead and set up these constraints in the interest of time. And we can push Solve. And now it's found that the ratio of using 0.7 teaspoons of imitation vanilla with 1.3 teaspoons of vanilla extract will give us a price of 80 cents of vanilla per recipe. And because I was using a formula, we have that value now appearing in this table. So we can go ahead and actually push this out to people. And with autosave, that's being done for us automatically. The file is being saved automatically, and Power BI is going to pick that up. We're also going to do one more thing here. Let's add a measure. And for this one, we're just going to add a fake one. Go, and this, to show not only changes the content in the data, but actually changes to the data model propagate. So when that's done, close out of the data model. We'll be taken back to the Excel window, and we can actually switch it back to Olaf.
You don't have to hit save or anything.
Nope.
So to walk you through really quick what we did, and I'll go back into my Excel file and show you, but I think this is really the coolest thing, right? He just made some changes to a table that is in Excel, and that table is being used with get and transform, and it's in the data model, has a relationship to another query that he did to another Excel file that also has data where he's actually merging from 5 different locations. And then we pushed that out to Power BI, where we visualized it, and then from there we decided to then reanalyze that in Excel again as another team. And and then show you that again. So here I'm back in that original file. So really all I have to do is here go to my data tab and hit refresh. And so if everything works well, you're going to see a new measure show up here, the Go MDES, and you're going to see my data change because he made changes with some calculations and what ifs. And there it is. And so to me, that really proves like we just made the full round trip back to back, right? So I can now go into Power BI as well, use this measure there as well, and my data keeps changing. I can be editing in the original source files in Excel and be making changes there. And then Power BI refreshes like every couple of hours. That data will come in right away, and you'll see it on your dashboard there as well, right? So to me, this was the ultimate better together demo and really merging all those types together. Just to, 5. So just to explain a little bit about everything that went on there. I know we did a lot of clicking and those things. So you saw the whole circle that we walked through from cleaning and analyzing and visualizing. But really what we believe is that we just showed that 365 really makes this a super easy and secure way of doing it. Literally, it was 2 clicks for me to set up, right? One for the tenant, one for the group. And you know, I assume you already had the tenant when you're working, so you don't have to do that click. And then in Excel, we just analyzed everything. In Power BI, we did all the visualization, all the sharing, all the difficult stuff of getting it with the gateway to on-prem or any of those type of things, Power BI handled for us. That brings me almost, oh, we went quick. We're speeding through this content today. Here's a couple of resources in those, and we'll do Q&A after this. We have some time, so that's good. Here's a couple of resources for Excel if you want to go, office.com/excel/community. If you want to ask us any questions, the PMs are on there, a whole bunch of our people are on there, the MVPs are on there as well. So a great place to go and just interact with us and share things. It looks a lot like the Power BI community as well. They're all connected with each other. If you want to know what's new in Excel, same thing, office.com/excel/what's new. I'm not going to read all the other ones, but those are the 2 important ones if you want to stay up to date on everything that's happening. And then, they didn't update it, but it's a recorded session. You can see this on demand if you want to do that. You want to open up for Q&A?
Sure.
Yeah? Anybody, any questions? I know we went really fast today, so I hope we didn't lose everybody in the process, but more than happy to dive back into a demo or show something. Yeah? Mm-hmm.
What if you are adding more Excel sheets? Like, you know, you have data coming in. Like, let's say we have a daily Excel and we have everyday data. And does that work with the daily Excel?
The question was not only changes to the data model and to the Excel file itself uploaded, but what about changes to the different files? If, for example, we're making changes to the files in the SharePoint folder, are they going to be brought up? They will the next time the workbook is refreshed. And by default, Power BI for files that are stored in OneDrive will refresh connected workbooks every hour.
So I think your question is more, because we looked at a folder in this case, so you can actually drop any file into that folder, and because we said folder, the naming of the files doesn't matter, as long as they're in the same format. So if you start adding columns and those things, you'll get an error, but you can actually say, during import, you can say take errors out, so if people make that mistake, it wouldn't break everything. But yeah, the beauty of it is that every week somebody could be dropping files in there, and you just get a bigger and bigger report.
The second part is that in order to create a data model, you have to put all of those Excel in one Excel to create a data model.
So the question is, in order to be able to create a data model, do you need to have, is a data model constrained to one workbook?
Yeah, or do we have different Excel spreadsheets that spread out?
So the data model can connect any number of different data sources. So you can have one thing, but it's all sitting in a single workbook. So the data model in that one workbook will have a connection to SharePoint and to SQL and to content on the grid, and it's all going to end up in that one data model in that workbook.
Yeah. Other questions? Yes?
So we kind of demonstrated that you can build a data model in Excel, Power BI, and make around stuff.
Yeah.
Or you can build the data model in Power BI and interact with Excel. Can you maybe share some things that we should consider when we're deciding whether to build it in Power BI versus source it in Power BI?
Sure. So the question is, when should you use Excel to create a data model like we just showed, or when should you use Power BI Desktop to create the data model. It really depends on your usage. So if you just have a lot of different data sources and all you want to do is visualize that and then share it out and go in that direction, Power BI Desktop is a really good solution for that, and it's made for just that. If you're already working in Excel, or you need to do calculations, or you need to interact with your data, or you need to do what-if type of scenarios that we were running, stuff like that, then I would start in Excel. So it's kind of, it depends on the scenario. We believe it's you have the freedom to choose, and one person can do one scenario in Power BI Desktop and publish it out to Power BI, then analyze in Excel, and another person can start in Excel at the same time. It doesn't, technically it doesn't matter all that much. Like, all the capabilities are the same, and so, yeah, I guess my answer would be if you don't need to work on the data, or you don't have tables in the data that you want to work with. So in this scenario, which we did, we needed to work on the tables and do a bunch of stuff there. It just works better that way. But both work the same, and the round tripping after that works the same as well. So if you start in Power BI Desktop and publish to Power BI, you can then also analyze in Excel. All those things will work too.
Power BI Desktop's for rich visual analysis. That's what the Power BI service offers. And so there's some flexibility around what you can actually do with the visuals in Power BI Desktop that the online service doesn't support.
Yeah.
Isn't that a reality, though, that if you set your connections up in Power BI Desktop, and then you publish it to PowerBI.com, which is what you want to do, to distribute it, you don't want to send Power BI Desktop, correct?
Correct.
Okay. That once you put it into PowerBI.com, if you want to refresh that data that is pulling from a data source, instead of doing it in Excel, say you suck in the data model and it's going at your internal SQL server, then you have to have a data gateway set up to allow you to go back through your firewall from the cloud, back to your source data, and then pull it back up to Power BI. Yet if you are doing it in Excel, you do it all behind the firewall, and then you just publish Excel up and show that data. You don't have to worry about a data gateway, which can be politically a problem.
So yeah, the question being, if you use Power BI Desktop to create a data model to external sources and publish that out versus doing in Excel like we just showed, would you need the gateway with the Power BI Desktop and not with Excel? No, in both cases, if you have external data in your data source, you would need the gateway. So,
Oh, if you use it in Excel, if somebody opens it in Excel,
so if it's in Excel,
refresh it behind the firewall and then save it back up. You wouldn't be refreshing the Excel file up in SharePoint. You'd refresh it before you save it.
so yeah, if your data is in Excel, we don't see that as external, because the file itself would be part of 365 or it would be in OneDrive, and so Power BI can access it. But if you're using a connection to a local file somewhere on a desktop or a SQL server or anything like that, the gateway would come in either one. Oh, sorry. We'll take questions offline as well. I would love to learn the scenario that you're asking about, or I would love to figure that one out. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll take it offline, and we'll, yeah.
So it used to be Power BI, there was the Basic and Pro, now there's Platinum. So what licensing is required to be able to do the Excel versus Power BI interactions?
So I'm not a licensing expert at all.
Is it available on the Basic, or do you have to upgrade to the premium tier?
As far as I know, it's available on everything. The licensing is who you can share it with after that. We're in this happy little bubble where we're just in one tenant and we're all licensed up. So technology-wise, that doesn't stop. I think that is more who you're allowed to share with. So it should work in everything.
You mentioned when you started your presentation about getting around the million rows.
Yep.
Does that pose any problems if you have a 32-bit version of Excel? If all of a sudden you give it all this information, or is it a new interface basically doesn't load all the data so we don't get into the data?
So I think the question is, does using 32-bit version of Excel constrain the amount of volume that you can work with data? Yes. Power Pivot is an in-model memory and is an in-memory model, and so the more memory that you can use, the more data that you can work with.
So but you can still go over the million. It's just you're going to hit a limit a little bit quicker than if you would be in 64.
Yes. Yeah, but 1 million rows is fine. That's not a problem. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are they just two completely different things, or are they interchangeable? That's the first thing. Can you show us, you unpivoted those columns?
Mhm.
Things like that, being able to unpivot columns and taking an Excel spreadsheet, which may have a lot of other stuff that Power BI can't.
Mhm.
Where do we go to figure out how to do all that?
So if, let's say you only have an Excel file with a lot of data in there that you want to unpivot and then use again in Excel as well. Yeah, sure. So what you do is you select it as a table, and in the get and transform ribbon, where we were using this, so in data, you can actually say from table here. And so that would load that messy table from Excel directly into get and transform. You can do all your cleanups to it, and then you can say load it back to another sheet. And so you get the clean version of that messy sheet and have them actually in the same Excel file. And so you can make the changes in, you copy paste or whatever you need to do in the messy one, and it would constantly come out clean on the other table or the other sheet, wherever you put the data.
And
but
with
it
the
can actually be within the same file.
And with the second part of your question, it's like these things are really powerful. How do you learn how to be really good with them? If you get the deck after the session, we actually have links to different training resources that you can use to become a whiz with Power Get and Transform or Power Pivot.
And to your first question, so the first question was about, hey, is teams the same things as groups and do they overlap and all those things? So we have some naming things there that make it a little bit difficult. What I showed and what I talked about was groups as the service as part of 365. It's actually not a product. You can't go there. So that's why if you create a workspace, it is parts of that groups engine that will connect all the different silos together. Now, it happens to be that Outlook group is the old DLs or the discussion list. It's part of groups as well. And so you saw me go into a group that was part of the groups engine. Now, team is part of the same thing. So if you have it, you can have a group and a team be part of the same groups service, which I said a lot of the same words all behind each other, so I think I'm confusing. But they all work together is the short answer. So you can have a teams discussion, you can have a groups discussion, or you can be in a team site and share your files. It's the same people, it's the same set of rights. Everything is like I showed it. Yes, but depending which, if you're talking about the 365 service, yes. Yes, absolutely. It's basically we're taking the approach, people like to work different ways, millennials versus none, and some people like to be in email, some people like to be in persistent chat. The good thing is, like, if I'm in Teams and I do a persistent chat and I attach a file, that goes to the same SharePoint site that when I just showed you the email one where I did live attachment, all ends up in the exact same spot with the exact same rights. So it might sound confusing in a presentation, but in real life, when you actually click on the files, you just work together on the same documents.
So to stick with the groups idea, when you had your Better Together group on SharePoint,
Yep.
if you wanted to have, say, your Northeast team and then your, West Coast team, underneath those, would you be able to create basically like a subgroup, or would you have to
No.
create an entire new group?
New group. There's no subgroups right now. So in Teams, there's a notion of sub-channels, but it's not actually groups. It just makes folders within the site. So there's no subgroups. So yeah, in that case, I would create multiple groups. But you can actually link them together. And with navigation, there's a lot of cool things you can do to make that easy for each other. But generally, you want to have those be all sub anyway, because they have their own rights, their own sets of people, and it's just easier to manage that way. We used to do the whole thing with sites and subsites, and it gets messy pretty quick. I see somebody smiling, so you know. Yes.
So you may not like this question, but some of my group went to Tableau.
Okay.
So can you talk about the interaction between the two, if it's proprietary?
Between Excel and Tableau, or?
Right, BI, Power BI, and Tableau.
Oh, I really don't know. I know nothing about Tableau, and that's not because I don't want to answer it. Like, I really don't mind the question. I just don't know. I don't know if you have.
No, we work on Excel, and Tableau is more of a competitor with Power BI.
So we're Excel engineers, and so that's not in my. Sorry, I mean I can find somebody. I'm sure we have some people that are experts on the compete and how that works together. So we haven't asked the experts. I can definitely help you find somebody. It's not a topic we don't mind talking about. Yeah.
I know that there are certain modeling capabilities, for example, bidirectional in Power BI. Is it on the roadmap, for example, in Excel to add to keep up with the improvements on Power BI? And for example, DAX formulas, as they're releasing DAX formulas
Yeah, so the question is, will Power BI Desktop and Excel with modeling be on par with each other, and Power BI Desktop being a little bit ahead? That's just because the rhythm they have and how fast they release. But yes, it's a shared stack. It's a shared stack of engineers that all work together. So we have people actually on our team that work really hard in making sure Excel follows that. So yes, it will never be 100% par at the same time. They just release faster than we do. We have another cadence. So we'll keep updating and keep adding all those things. So yeah, that's absolutely the vision. It's a shared stack and it should just work the same everywhere. Last question? Yeah? Limitation on the number of rows Excel can handle, if you put it in the data model, is dependent on the amount of memory that you have. So yeah, if you get a 64-bit version of Excel and a 64-bit machine with a whole bunch of RAM, you can go super high. I would definitely go 64-bit there, and you have to do the data model. So if you don't put it in the data model, there's just a limitation of how many items you can show on the grid, and just memory-wise. But as long as you put it in the data model, you can slice and dice and work with that data any way you like. All right, thank you. We'll be around here. We'll be at Ask the Experts as well. I'll be at the reception. You'll be at the reception? Yeah, so you can find us there as well. Thank you.
Thank you.